Did you know that grief impacts your personality and your identity? The work I've been doing over the last 15 years has shown me how much we change ourselves in relation to the grief we've experienced. Today, I want to talk to you specifically about how grief impacts introverts. Why introverts? Because honestly, most of us go inward, which is a more introvert quality when we're grieving. My name is Katie Ressler. I am a transformative grief guide, licensed counselor, and author of the book, The New Face of Grief. I work with my clients in understanding how hidden grief is impacting their lives. Yes, grief is related to death, but it is also related to the transitions we go through in life, changes, things we need to adapt to, even rites of passage. When we become a parent or get married, go off to college, just grow up in general, grief is related to all of this. And often what happens with my clients is there's a death that occurs in their family or someone close to them. And then from there, they start to realize they have unresolved grief in other areas of their life too. So as we look today at how introverts are impacted by grief, I want you to sort of do some self-reflection on what rings true for you. Now, I like to use the Myers-Briggs as the way that I navigate personality. It's a research-based way of studying personality, and it's quite interesting to see how it's developed, especially over the last 20 years. When we look at the difference between an extrovert and an introvert, what we're actually looking at is where people get their energy from. Are you the type that goes to a party and you feel the energy of the room and it just gets you electric feeling and excited? Sometimes after you leave a party, it takes a while for you to wind down in a good way. Or are you the type that when you go out to events, you feel drained afterwards? You feel like somebody's kind of like sucked the life force out of you and you just need quiet time the rest of the night or even the next day to kind of rejuvenate. You don't need big groups of people. In fact, you probably find that one-on-one or even small groups is just enough of a fill the cup kind of feeling. We're all on the spectrum. And at different times in our lives, certain areas will come out more than others. When I opened my first private practice back in 2011, I started everything as an extrovert. I'd always been an extrovert. I loved talking to groups of people and I enjoyed being out there. I was the planner of the parties. And then I started seeing clients between 6 and 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And I'd go home and my husband would be like, "What's wrong? You don't want to go out anymore. You don't want to do anything." Now he was the introvert in our relationship. So it was a little bit hard for him to go like, "Now I have to carry the conversations. You don't want to talk anymore." And I shared with him, even as an extrovert, I have my times where I just need to go inward and I need to have that introspection time and quiet time. And when you talk all day and you're around people all day, you need to have a break too. So we're all on a spectrum. It doesn't matter who we are. There are some of us who are very introverted, but there are moments where they really enjoy going to a party or a concert and you just feel the vibe and energy of people and it excites you versus drains you. But let's talk about grief and being introverted. So as I said, most of us go inward when we're grieving. It's a very personal experience. We all go through it differently. We all have different thoughts and feelings attached to when we lose someone or something like a pet in our lives. It brings up past times where we've lost things, where things didn't go the way we thought they would or should. And so we find our grief almost is compounded. One of the key ways that I notice introverts are impacted by grief is something I like to call in my book is the struggle between solitude and isolation. So an introvert wants to go inward, right? They want to have that quiet time and they need to kind of push away from society and the world around them and recluse. And that could be really good for them. It helps sort of rebuild what's going on inside and allows them that space and that sacred, that sacred space to grieve the way they need to without judgment, without issue. It also means that they get to do it on their own timeline. And it's not about other people's rush of, you should already be done with this. But what happens is we get in our little canoe and we row out to our personal island and we stay there. And it's beautiful in the beginning. That solitude is so needed. We need to just wake up whatever time we want to. Maybe we shower or don't that day, and we're not sure what we're going to eat. But we kind of need that almost nesting and cocooning time, right? But there's a shift psychologically between solitude and isolation. And it's almost like a quick snap of the finger that we start to feel like no one cares. No one sees me, no one cares. They've forgotten what I've gone through. It doesn't matter. Their lives have gone on, and I'm just sitting here by myself on my island that I rowed myself out to. But I forget that part because it's about other people don't care. And what then starts to occur is this, I don't have anyone. I'm alone. And when you're an introvert and you already kind of keep your circle sort of smaller, it feels even more like I'm by myself. And through that process, we find the mind games of just feeling completely hopeless and helpless because we don't have that connection with someone else. We all need that no matter where we are on the spectrum. We do need connection with others. So what I encourage in my book is we get back on that little canoe, whether it's comfortable or not, and we go back to the mainland. And we see there are other people and they do care. And what does that look like for an introvert? Well, it's not literally getting in a boat, obviously, but it is sending a text message to like one or two really close people saying, hey, I really need to go grab a coffee with you. Or, hey, are you available tonight to come over? Or can we just text message chat? I don't feel like seeing anybody, but like I need to know I'm not alone. And that's a very vulnerable place to be in when you actually need to say to someone, I need you, or I need something. But it's the first step, removing yourself from isolation back into solitude. It is the reminder that you chose to separate yourself from the pack, in a sense, from the mainland for good reasons, but it can quickly get twisted. And it isn't because there's anything wrong with you or you are not enough or people don't care. It's usually because they're respecting the boundary you put up of I'm going inward. I have a very close friend who, when she lost a key family member, I didn't know her style of grieving yet. And she reclused. And I was like, where did you go? Like, what happened? Are you okay? Are you still there? And it may have felt pushy to her, and she just didn't respond. And it was months later, all of a sudden, she came back to the mainland and was like, hey, how are you doing? And I was just like, what? What is this? Like, hi, how are you? There was a part of me that was hurt. I took it personally. And then I realized, oh God, this is just our grief process. And as we've grown in our friendship, I know that this is just a part of her grief process. She goes off to her island. But what we have learned in our friendship is she just has to inform me, hey, I'm going to disappear for a bit. Everything's good. I just need to go inward. And I get it. As introverts, informing those around you who really matter, that you want them to know, hey, I care and I love you, but I need to go introverted and like be in my own spot, is a beautiful thing. It can be a text message, it can be a written message, an email, a call, a face-to-face meeting, assuring them they are a wonderful support for you, but you really just don't need them right now. But you will let them know when you do. And maybe you come up with a keyword, a funny, bear hug could be the code word, or something that goes, or mainland, I'm rowing back to the mainland, and that's their cue. Come get me. Give me a hug. Bring me a meal. Let me know I'm still loved and cared for. It's a interesting dance of I need me time and I need to know I'm not alone. So that's one of the biggest tools that I give my introvert clients is how to inform when it's time to go inward and how to feel comfortable to go back to the mainland and know that there's somebody there waiting. Sometimes that means having someone like me, someone that you use as your guide, your counselor, your therapist, your coach, to go, okay, I'm ready to schedule an appointment. And sometimes it's that best friend or that family member who just gets it. Maybe it still hurts a little, like my experience, but they're able to say, I've got to put my own needs and wishes to the side. I miss my friend, but you know what? When she's ready or he's ready, I'll be ready. And being able to be that support, because really in grief, we can't make it about ourselves when the other person is grieving. Another thing that I find with introverts is when you go inward and you're doing that personal grieving work and you're just feeling it, shame and guilt can get really wrapped up in the process. Memories of things you wish you said or did, experiences of, had I been this, maybe these things wouldn't have occurred. And so we get into this mind game of, I probably had better control of the situation than actually I did. And that's even more why it's important to go and speak to someone. To say, I know it might sound crazy, but I just need to say this. Like, I harbor a lot of guilt towards myself because this happened to them. Because our last conversation looked like this. Because when I was 10 years old, I yelled at them about this, and I still think about that. I never asked for forgiveness, or I never owned up to the decisions I made. And that person can go, oh my God, that's not crazy. But I bet they don't harbor any feelings towards you, especially now. They're not holding on to this. How can you forgive yourself? When we are wrapped up in shame and guilt, it can feel even more impossible to reach out for help. This is why I encourage everyone, no matter what personality type you have, to already have your person or people that you go to, because you're more likely to reach out to them, those safe, healthy people in your life. And if you don't have that, again, you can find a coach, a guide, clinician who can be that person that when you need it, you go to them. But having that person you can go to in good times, so that when things are bad, you can go to them and go, you know how my brain works. I'm making this all about the stuff that I did wrong. And I just need you to hear me. Don't fix it, but just hear me. And sometimes those people can normalize it, because all of us at times feel guilt and shame around a loss or things that we've said or done. Maybe we feel guilty because we didn't cry on a certain anniversary, or we've even forgot an anniversary. And we feel this, oh, there's something, gosh, I just feel like I'm going to beat myself up for the next week or two. And you need that friend or that confidant, coach you can talk to that says, okay, you can do that. Yeah. How do you feel like that person would want you to feel or think? What can you do instead? If you don't want to forget this anniversary, let's just go ahead and a week prior, put a little notification in your phone. Then next year you won't forget. You can move forward with confidence that you won't forget again. Or why does it have to be on that anniversary day that you do something? Why can't it be even a week later? You still honor, celebrate, grieve, and mourn, whatever it might be, the loss that you've experienced. Our creativity is gone when we are in that stressed, grieving mode. And sometimes we need other people to give us those ideas to go, oh, you're right. I want to go on a hike to celebrate them. And I want to write a letter and burn it so it's like it goes up to them. I want to do something that really, honors their life, or go volunteer here to kind of really build that legacy. No matter who we are, extroverted or introverted, thinker, feeler, sensing, more intuitive, whatever you are, you need to have that support in place, and to recognize that that internal monologue that happens doesn't mean you're crazy or something's wrong with you. But there are some wonderful people out there in the world who can normalize it for you and then give you some tools of how to work on it if it's something you don't like. Or if you realize it's actually more detrimental to be this way, then to be more hopeful or to see the more positives. But you need some help to get there. It's okay. It doesn't mean anything is wrong with you. So if you're introverted, or you know someone's introverted and you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, Yes, 100%. I'm getting this. Okay, how do I need more tools. I've got to figure this out. What are some other things about my personality that are affected by grief? I have a wonderful resource for you. And it's truly how your personality is affected by grief. I go through each of the sub personality types of the Myers-Briggs in an audio format and allows you to listen and go at your own pace with, okay, I'm more of a thinker than a feeler. How am I impacted by grief? I'm more intuitive than sensing. How am I impacted by grief? And through that, you start to get to learn about, okay, hey, I need to be more aware of this when I'm grieving, more aware of this when I'm grieving. And you'll find that slowly you start to understand you're normal and how you grieve is normal, even if people around you don't get it. I also have another resource for you. I shared in the beginning my book, The New Face of Grief. And it truly came out of my own experiences of losing my mother and going through 2 miscarriages, all in a series of 19 months. And it addresses grief related to death and that hidden grief related to other losses. And I have a free chapter that you can listen to as well available. I'd love to be able to connect with you. So I'm going to look at a way right here, post this up for you to see where you can find me on social media, where you can find my website, whether it be Instagram or LinkedIn, and then the book, thenewfaceofgrief.com. That is also available on Amazon and all other online major bookstores. And I really encourage you to grab it, especially if you're finding, hey, I've got some work I need to do. And I can see now that my personality really is impacted. It's not necessarily that we become the worst version of ourselves, but it does damper and help make us go into places that we don't really always want to be, and we don't really feel like our true selves. So find me on social media, send me an email at info@katierussler.com. Share with me how you are learning how your personality is impacted by grief and how you'd like to start working on that. I have lots of great resources and tools on my website, as well as throughout my social media. So I know you will find something that works best for you. And remember, it's okay to ask for help, and it's okay to go inward when you need to. Just make sure that solitude doesn't become isolation and that you have that person you can go to so you know you're not crazy for thinking or feeling the way that you do.